Hi folks, welcome to That Reminds Me Of. This episode we're talking about Riders of Justice by Anders Thomas Jensen.
Hey Doc, how are you? And look, everybody, if you haven't seen our show before, this is the show where we watch films and we talk about the films that we were reminded of while watching them. It's spoiler heavy, so if that bothers you, go and watch the film first. Otherwise, stay with us.
Baron, how are you, mate?
Doing well, Doc, doing well. It's been a while, hey? It's been a little while since we did an episode.
It has. We've just been busy boys, really, haven't we? Both at work and at play. Absolutely.
And I think we've mentioned before that we both work at the same gig, the same corporate gig. It's been busy. It's just one of those times of years. Every now and again, it just gets crazy busy and we both get swarmed with work, and the things you want to do, the play, the fun, gets harder and harder to do. But we're kind of coming out of that now, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. What drives me crazy is that we're in lockdown in Melbourne at the moment. Sydney, also in Australia, is in lockdown. We've had it a lot better than other parts of the world, but at the moment we're kind of doing it a little bit tough. But I like lockdown. I like the concept of being home and being able to read books and just enjoy myself, but I'm being thwarted by just how busy work is, and it's a real weird position. I feel like I'm in a different headspace to the rest of the world.
The amount that you like lockdown is a strange thing to me. I don't get it, but I could imagine how frustrating it would be. Like if having that chance to have all your books around you, you know, not have to do things out in the world, but actually have that time to be in your house. But then work comes along and just eats all of that time up, and actually you're busier than you ever were before. That's frustrating.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've always had this perverse desire to be like locked up. Like in this, maybe this is too early in the episode to be revealing these types of things, but to be in prison or something where you have all of the choice taken away from you and you really can focus on your own thoughts and ideas and all that sort of stuff. I don't want to have to do something bad to get into prison. I don't think I'd like it there, but I like the fact of being constrained, and it's just really frustrating me that it's like I've been waiting for this moment all my life, and yet I'm so too busy to enjoy it.
You can finally get that law degree you've always wanted.
Yeah, I don't think I'd use it for that.
No.
But what's happening in your life? I think you've had some pretty cool things happening, not just at work, but in your let's call it play life, but perhaps your real life. I'll call it.
Yeah, Doc. Or oddly, I think maybe slightly because of lockdown, I've been applying for things left, right, and center. I've been putting feelers out into the world for my different various film projects, and things are starting to come back. And you know what it makes so clear to me is that, and it's obvious. I don't know why this needs to be even said, but like unless you're putting work out there, or you're trying, at least you're throwing your hat in the ring, nothing's going to happen. And the more you throw your hat in the ring, your chances just go up. The more likely that something will happen. So, and it's been working. So that's been a really nice experience. And the one that I can tell you about now is that my feature film Locked In that I've been working on for a while, and has been optioned by a producer here in Melbourne, Kathy Rodder, who's
which has nothing to do, mind you, with being locked in.
No, totally.
That's a coincidence.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Maybe that's why it's becoming popular, this idea, all of a sudden, because we're all living it. Anyway, we put it in for development funding so that we could get some money to write another draft. And this is with Film Victoria, and found out just recently that we've got the money. They want us to do a staged approach to it. So we'll do an outline for the next draft, and then we'll do the actual draft itself. But it's awesome. It's progress, and this is my first time in Victoria kind of getting in with the local film agency. I've done a lot of stuff with Screen West in Western Australia, but they didn't know who I was here at all. So it's kind of cool. Kind of cool to get in there and be recognized and get a little bit of money to help make the dream come true.
Yeah, I don't care much about the mechanics, but I've read the early drafts, and it's a great script. So like, I can't wait to whatever it takes to make it happen. I'm happy there. With. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Cheers, Doc. I know. At this, when you've done so many drafts, at a certain point, it's just like, hey, let's just whatever it takes, we'll do it. We'll get this thing over the line. Let's go.
Well, as just a sideline to all this mayhem in our work and play lives, has been MIF. Melbourne International Film Festival's been happening,
yes.
Or happening, not happening. What does it look like? Type questions. So it started off. We were excited about a real life festival again, because we were doing pretty well in Melbourne here with coronavirus, and we really thought we'd be out in the cinemas, enjoying it, lapping it up, getting our feet wet in the Melbourne puddles during the middle of winter.
Things were on the up and up. We were out. We were in the clear.
They were. And then it goes and gets, we get a few cases, and then it gets half cancelled, then it gets full cancelled, and it goes full online. So anyway,
we had so many screenings lined up. We were gonna hit at least, I reckon, 5 or 6 films together, and then there were individual films that we were going to see. All of that cancelled.
Yeah,
such a shame.
Yeah. It was a bit of a disappointment, and we really did last year's MIF when we knew last year it was going to be online.
Yes,
it was kind of a different vibe, and I think we approached it with that mentality. And we watched quite a few films and reviewed quite a few during that time.
I think we saw almost 10 films. Am I right? Is that right? Because we had actually just started this podcast. It was, I think maybe we had done less than 10 episodes, and then MIF came along. And we decided to go hard over those 2 weeks and see as many films as we could reasonably, and record as many as we could as soon after the film came out as we could. That was the plan. And, we did, I think, okay. We got through quite a few.
Yeah, we were young and fresh then.
we were flying by the seat of our pants.
Old and jaded. I've got a pot belly. So we've changed quite a bit since then. We've matured. Anyway, well, let's segue straight into the film that we're looking at, because which
has nothing to do with MIF.
No, yes, it does. What are you talking about?
Oh, of course. Sorry. No, of course you are. You're right. What am I talking about?
Here I am beautifully organising my segues between topics.
Bloody hell.
But even though we haven't seen, neither of us have seen many films in the online program, but this is one we couldn't possibly not see, and we both agreed it was top on our list, and that is Riders of Justice, directed by Anders Thomas Jensen, but importantly, starring Mads Mikkelsen, who we love.
Mads, I know. And earlier this year we saw a film called Another Round starring Mads, also a Danish film, and man, I'm just growing such a soft spot for this whole little cinema bubble that I don't think I really understood before. Like, I'd seen The Hunt, we talked about that, but that's about it. So,
but it's just not just Mads, and I think we're pronouncing him incorrectly. I think it's something like, I think it's a silent D, which I don't even know how to cope with. But so we're gonna stick with Mads, but
I can't figure that out.
Yeah, let's just asterisk it, and
let's just let everyone know that we know that we're getting this wrong.
Yes, but it's for convenience, it's easier to say Mads.
Yeah,
it's fun to say Mads.
It's great.
But I'm falling in love with Denmark, I think, or Danish people, or just their minds, because you got him. You got the director Anders Thomas Jensen, who I've looked at his back catalogue. I haven't watched much of it yet, but clearly he knows what he's doing, and he's a writer of some renown. At least, let alone
I think we
director.
need to watch more of his films after this one.
Crikey, yeah. But you've got all of my favourite actors. They're male ones, interestingly. So that's another sub-conversation. But Mads Mikkelsen, Viggo Mortensen, the guy from Game of Thrones. The main guy, like he's really... good guy.
He's a really good guy.
Nikolai, jeez, he's so cool. I've just drawn a blank. Sorry.
Wait, are we talking about the wildling, orange, sort of red-haired bearded guy that's
is he Danish? Is he Danish too?
I don't know. Which guy from Game of Thrones are we talking about that's Danish?
Oh, Christ. Okay.
Oh, that's all right. This is a little side rabbit hole that we have to suddenly figure our way through.
Let's Joe Rogan it and get it up on.
Yeah, I like that. But okay, no, but the guy from with the red beard, who's the wildling, the like north of the wall guy. He
he's great.
He was in Force Majeure, right? So, but that's with don't worry.
No,
I don't know where he's from.
But you're right. That's also not Danish.
That's not Danish. Yeah, okay.
But
there goes my whole theory.
However, it is. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that comes into the films that it reminds me of actually.
Okay.
Because that's Ruben Östlund.
Yes.
Is the director of that, and I feel he's almost in this same bubble.
He could
just
be. Yeah.
You've got. I've always loved Hannah Kay, who's there somewhere as well.
Yes.
Östlund.
Yes.
And now Anders Thomas Jensen, Thomas Vinterberg, from Another Round,
and The Hunt that we talked about.
And The Hunt.
Yeah.
There's just a whole lot of good stuff going on around that region.
There's some good North European vibes happening here. Just smart filmmakers who are making unexpected films. You know, like these are not Hollywood films.
Jaime Lannister is the character in Game of Thrones, and the actor is Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
Would never have known that he just wasn't just a Brit. That's what I thought. There you go.
He's a ripper. He's a ripper.
There you go. Okay.
So I love Denmark now, and I just want to get there. Anyway, so Riders of Justice.
Yes, back to the film.
Where do we start? Should we give a synopsis? I reckon we cheat on it and just say what IMDb says.
Yep, let's do that because we've discovered that's two things. That's faster, but also if it's crap, we can make fun of it. So it's good, right? Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, you do it.
Okay, so Marcus, played by Mads, a deployed military man, has to go home to his teenage daughter, Mathilde, when his wife dies in a tragic train accident. It seems to be plain bad luck, but it turns out that it might have been a carefully orchestrated assassination, which his wife ended up being a random casualty of. That's not the great
best.
well.
But it tries to sum up the story. It's a noble effort.
Here we go. Our synopses have been some of the worst ever written.
I know.
Or ever spoken. They've not been written. But
true. And now because we're doing this, we can flip it and just criticize other people's attempts. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Why wouldn't we do that? That just makes sense.
There's another take on it that's just worth adding. So this is under the storyline. It's subheading storyline on our IMDb. Marcus goes home to his teenage daughter Mathilde when his wife dies in a tragic train accident. It seems like an accident until a mathematics geek, who was also a fellow passenger on the train, and his two colleagues show up. Isn't it interesting? Like, you only get a couple of sentences, and what you choose to focus on in those sentences is so important.
It's the hardest thing ever. Whenever I have to write a logline for one of my projects, I just spend hours and hours and days just fretting over it, and it's still crap at the end of that process. So
yeah, maybe we need a whole episode on log lines and synopses.
Yep,
and just compare them.
Yep.
Anyway, that's one of our longer introductions to an episode, I think. But I'm keen to hear from you. What did you think about this movie? How many stars? What out of 10?
We don't do that normally, but I love this film. I freaking love this film. When you go to a MIFF screening, or when you're watching something at MIFF, you know that you're in for a festival film, and it could go any one of multiple ways. Like it could be very artsy and weird. It could be, quite tame. It could just be like, a bit of a drama for elderly people. You just don't know what you're getting. But this one, oh my God, just on every level, so cool. it's on the surface a revenge flick that, you know, Liam Neeson should probably be starring in. But instead, you get this wonderful Danish take on it that's just so full of depth and dark humor, and it's just great. I loved it. Loved it. What about you, Doc?
Yeah. Well, it's a masterpiece, I think. And I'm trying to think of any films that I like more than this one, honestly.
Oh, wow. I love it.
I really, really loved it. I wrote down Danish Liam Neeson, which is probably, I'm not the first person to have written that down.
Well, that's what I wrote down as well.
Yeah, pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But no, I loved it on just so many levels. I'm keen to just dig into it and talk about the stuff that we liked. So maybe just straight off the bat, what's one of the top points?
Absolutely. Like, that's something worth noting though, right? Danish Liam Neeson, everybody's going to think it, right? That's what's so clever about it. They're playing on a genre and all the cliches and tropes of that genre, and then flipping it on you. So you're because you can't help it, right? When something goes down like this, you just can't wait for that Liam Neeson character to go there and kill everybody. Like, that's just part of it. That's what a revenge film is, and it's going to be horrible when he does it, but you're going to feel good about it on some level because they had it coming, right? But this just won't let you really feel that, you know? Like, it's sort of, every time it's heading that way and you're excited about it, they'll just, you know, you get something so unexpected come out of left field, and just so many human moments throughout the whole thing. I just thought, on so many levels, it's so smart, like so smart. And it's also because it's playing on that revenge genre, it'll probably appeal to a much wider audience than your average Danish film would, you know, like it might cut through quite nicely into Western audiences around the world.
Yeah, that's a really, really good comment. You're right, because people go in expecting one thing, and that's what gets the bums on the seats.
Yeah.
And then they are forced to see something different and a bit artistic and gentle at times and crazy at others. It's really, really great. And I was thinking about just how much it breaks convention and how annoyed I get actually about movies and books and everything that just follow genre conventions too closely. And this one just did whatever it felt like at different times.
You're making me jump around my notes because I had them all in some like nice order that I expected I was gonna, you know.
I didn't mean to lead with that actually, but we can jump into genre if you think that's time.
Well, I can't even find my note here, but what that's reminding me of, and what I ended up getting to was that, you know, when you have a Hollywood formula that everybody understands, like we've seen a million of them, from Die Hard through to Taken through to whatever, right? We know what these films are. When they come out, they have to be a perfect execution of that film now, because we've seen a million of them, right? We know what they're meant to be. If they're wrong, if they're a bit off, you're like, nah, this film's shit. You know, I've already seen Liam Neeson do that way better. You know what I mean? But this film, it's because it's subverting the genre and it's a bit weird. It's like you stop being picky. That's very quickly. You're just like, whoa, what's happening? Wait a second. And because everything's coming at you and you're kind of taken off guard a little bit, you're able to just enjoy the ride, which is so rare in film, especially when we're talking about genre and there's all these expectations around what genre should be. I think that's a blessing, man. Like, it's such a nice thing to be able to just sit back off guard and enjoy the whole film.
Yeah, completely. Yep. I think one of the things I liked best about it was how it explored character and how it developed character. I know we're jumping around here, but the economy with which, say, Mads Mikkelsen's character was developed was, to me, extraordinary. Like, you first see him in context in the war, Then you see him get you have a bit of an interaction with his wife, then gets the news that she's been killed. On the plane, you see his hand shaking. And then again, I think when he's seeing her body, his hand shaking again. And you can just intuit so much of who he is from all of that without any words being spoken. And that's just that character. And you can say the same for all of them.
They're all brilliant, yeah. It's in terms of like an oddball bunch of characters, which is what we have here. Because we've got Mads, who's like the Marine, basically. He's the highly trained soldier. And then you've got a group of 3 nerds of sorts, but like one's a programmer, one's what does the guy do who's into the whole coincidence theory? Like, what's that? He's a kind statistician.
I think he's a mathematician type guy.
Yeah, okay. So you've got him and he's kind of like the main guy.
Yeah, that's Otto.
And then you've got his mate who sort of rubs the programmer up the wrong way all the time. He's like another mathematician, but he's he's been abused as a child, and he's he's high strung. Just everything's like an issue with him. And the 3 of them are just such a great combination to throw up against the Mads character. Like it's genius. And what's beautiful about it is that you've got Mads and his daughter, who are now without a mother and a wife, and kind of alone in the world, suddenly thrown in with these 3 oddballs, and they become this weird family unit.
I think those 3 characters are the core of the film. As much as I love Mads, I really love him, and also his daughter was great, her boyfriend was great, and a lot of those other characters were great. Those 3 guys are so pivotal to this film. I think they are the film, really. It's what is it? Otto, Lennart, and what's the other guy's name? Emmentaler.
I'm saying that wrong probably, but yeah.
Oh, we're saying everything wrong. Let's just live with it. But those 3, just the way that their characters are just slowly by degrees built up. Like you get to know them just, slowly. Like Otto, for example, starts off in the corporate environment, delivering a pitch to some, wanker corporates. And I think we can empathize with that. And then you get a bit of his personality there. Then you go into his home and you see the pictures in his apartment suggesting a backstory. You see that his arm is not working quite right, so he's had some issue there. And his storyline just evolves to the very end when it's only right at the end that he's full, what do you call it?
Arc.
Arc.
100%.
And it's the same with his, the other 2, exactly the same. I just loved it.
That's what makes this film. It's great characters, great character writing. And this theme of coincidence is woven through the whole film, and it starts with him, as you're saying, trying to pitch to these corporate guys who just will never get it, that they've created this algorithm that will help them determine what's going to happen in the future, so that you could actually figure out beyond this idea of coincidence what people are going to do. And it's just this beautiful laying down of the theme that then becomes this obsession. When the train accident happens and the mother is killed, there's this obsession that grows out of that about, was it coincidence, or was it because I did this, or because that happened right at the beginning of the film, or this or that, And he has this beautiful speech partway through the film where he says, you'll never be able to figure it out. You can go back and back and back, but you have to consider all of these elements, and it's impossible. So what's the point? It's kind of beautiful.
It is beautiful, and it's rare that you get a thematic through line through a film that is so perfectly executed.
Yeah.
Like there's so many themes throughout it, but that one is a central one. And you're right, it's got that speech was beautiful when Otto gives that. It was towards the end, I think, in the latter third.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
But the interesting thing was, for the bulk of the film, it was as if they had uncovered, through this genius of algorithm, the actual truth, right. And the whole film was based on this truth, a conspiracy, and that you really are forced to believe that and buy into it for the sake of the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a spoiler, but we're known for spoilers. But then that completely unravels. So the whole purpose of the plot unravels. The whole motivation of the characters unravels. Your viewing experience unravels, and it's no longer Liam Neeson taken. The whole foundation has come apart, because actually it's not true what they were.
Exactly. It's not justified. And if it's not justified, then Liam Neeson going on a rampage, killing everybody, just suddenly makes him look like a complete psycho. You know what I mean? It's so beautiful. I love it. And you know what else is clever about that idea of coincidence is that, all of these films, no matter how good they are, there's always going to be a couple just ridiculous coincidences in them, oh, you happen to run into that guy just at that moment. Oh yeah. But like this, because this is the theme of the film, every little thing that happens just becomes a strengthening of this theme. It's just so clever.
Yeah, it's marvelous. It's marvelous.
Yeah.
Just on character development, I've got to just spend a moment on that Lennart character, and the moment that really told me this was a great film. And it's probably something that a lot of people have picked up on, I suspect. But when he went into that, so Lennart is the mate of Otto, the sort of crazy one with the longer hair, and he
who looks like the guy from Queen.
Did
you catch that joke? There was like when one of the guys says, when he's trying to identify him, he's trying to describe this character. He's like, he looks like the one of the, I think it's like the bass player from Queen or something.
Yeah, that sounds right. But when he's forced into pretending to be a psychiatrist, and he's got so much experience that he knows how to play the role perfectly, and then he just drops in the middle of the session this stuff about his backstory of being abused as a kid by his uncle and this sort of thing. And that I just, the writing in this film is just some of the best that I've ever experienced. It's so succinct and powerful, and that was just one that's just thrown in there. And in that the whole scene was not about him, it was about other stuff. It was about the girl, about everything else. But then in the middle of it, you get this little gem that says so much about his character, and the layers are just amazing.
I totally agree. And the whole thing is you've got these guys who are coming together and becoming a family of sorts, and are so open, almost because they've been, I guess because they've been at the bottom of the social rungs for so long, that they're basically just completely open about all of the most painful, horrific things that have happened to them in a way that you never hear people being. And it's just okay. It's just like family talking to each other about, all the awful things that have happened in your life, and everyone kind of just takes it on the chin and keeps going. It's a bizarre and wonderful thing. But it's such a great way to get all this great character through, Yeah.
It's a funny thing with outcasts and people that are, not quite just the homogenous, normal person. And I love how that it's presented, that these people are different and unpredictable. And we're all that. That's just human and real.
It's true.
But often in film and in fiction and in art, we go back to kind of Joseph Campbell type archetypes rather than complexities, and this broke a few molds.
Well, it's kind of doing both too, isn't it? Because it isn't. They are archetypes of the sort. Like they are cliches in a way. Like at a glance, you know who these guys are. All of
true.
them. However, what is revealed about them is not at all that.
Yeah.
And the film is that as well. The film's a cliche at a glance, but it's not at all that once you get into it. It's great.
Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah.
And how about the book ending of it? I think this, just to perhaps finish our discussion
explain the bookend
of the film, you've got, it's almost a rom-com bookend in a way, where it's a gentle Christmas sort of, well, the start of it is not Christmas, but it's an old guy and perhaps his granddaughter or something, looking at bikes for Christmas. For a Christmas present, and then that comes around at the end and the theme is presented again. I haven't explained that very well, but there's this very soft book ending of the whole narrative, which I liked. I thought it was great. Do you agree?
I loved it because it really reinforces that theme of coincidence, and that, it drives home this idea that there's really nothing that any of these people could have done about this. It just happened. All the events unraveled because of a random thing. A girl didn't like the blue color of the bike, or the red, or whatever it was, and she wanted a different color. So that started a chain of events. It's just such a cool, simple bookending idea of this. That's just great. So fun. And you're right, it is gentle compared to everything else that happens.
Yeah, and it gives you a gentle finish, which is nice for such a violent film at times.
Yes.
But it makes also the film itself seem like a little vignette, like just one little thing that happens in the world alongside many other things.
It gives it a quality of a parable, like it's got this sense of, deep things have happened, basically off the back of this one little tiny moment.
It also gives, what's his name, Anders, the director, has 3 cracks at an ending in a way.
It's true.
Because there's one ending where Mads Mikkelsen is basically going off to die after being shot, and I love how he finds a quiet, private spot behind a tree. Yeah. Like even that reveals a lot of his character with his daughter. I was reminded of The Road when the father and the son the father was dying with the son there.
Great.
And that feels like the end, and it feels like a tragic end. Then all of a sudden you've got sort of the Christmas winter sweater ending, which follows it when everything turns out great. And what's his name? Emmentaler is playing the tuba.
I can't. Yes, the French horn. That's right. He gets a French horn. Yeah.
And then you've got the bookend ending with the turning to the bike theme and the this is just one story of many. And
sometimes when you have multiple endings like that, it's actually feels like the writer doesn't know what they're doing. But in this case, complete opposite of that. It feels perfect. It feels completely on point. Were there any other? I think we've mentioned quite a few. We've talked about, you mentioned The Road just now, Liam Neeson, Taken. Any other things that you were reminded of while watching this film?
I have a couple. Do you have a couple as well?
I only got, because I think we've talked about Another Round, which is another one. I only have one extra. So you go first.
Okay, well, I'll start, and this relates to Another Round because I think Another Round is a great reference in itself because it's got Mads Mikkelsen and a host of 40-something mates.
Yes.
Getting into some mischief. And
it's also a beautiful film in that same kind of vibe of the Danish style that we're getting here.
That's right. But I'm going to reference, I think, the same film that I might have referenced when we talked about Another Round, and that is another Thomas Vinterberg film called Dear Wendy, which is about a collection of young misfits who come together as pacifists but get absolutely enthralled by guns. So it's pacifists with a love for guns, and that ends violently. And they're the same. They've got the same sort of vibe of these guys, where they're just a little bit NQR, and but relatable. You don't know what they're going to do. They're all on the edges of society, but they've got good intentions. But then through, just being absorbed by themselves, they end up committing horrific acts. It was really, really similar thematically, and this was a great movie, Dear Wendy. It's one of my favourites, and I only watched it due to the fact that we saw Another Round.
Wow, I need to see it. I still haven't seen that film. Talking about Another Round, I noticed while I was doing a little bit of research just before we got on here, that there's Another Round rebooted on IMDb, and I have this horrible feeling that what we're talking about is an American remake of Another Round.
No, don't tell me that. That's.
I just hope it's not. I really hope. I mean, I can't imagine a sequel to Another Round, so I don't know what that would even be. But what else could this thing be? Anyway, it's on there. Vinterberg's down there as the director for it. Interesting. So we shall see.
I'm hoping that it's referencing the fact that Another Round was actually a short before it was a feature.
Okay.
So it could be that the reboot is the one that we've seen, and we haven't seen the short.
This is a new title. This is something new coming out in, it's in pre-production.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's be honest. It's ripe. It's ripe. it's ripe for Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg or Donnie Wahlberg.
Oh my God, could you imagine? Oh, Jesus. Anyway, yes, you're right. It is.
No, who would you cast? It'd be Will Ferrell and the guy from Parks and Recreation, I reckon.
Steve Carell.
No. Are you any one of several? Could you?
Any one of these guys? Yeah, no. Steve Carell would be like the straight, like the tight knit sort of dude who lets loose. Anyway, let's hope this never happens. Let's hope that.
What do you got?
A film that sort of came out of the UK, and it reminded me of this one because it just sort of took everyone by surprise. Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
That's one of your favourites from memory.
Oh, it's up there. I love that film. What I think works with that film is that you've got a similar group of quirky characters. It's a gangster film, but Guy Ritchie makes gangster films like no one else. So you don't, it doesn't hit any of the tropes the way you think it's going to. And particularly Lock, Stock, when it came out, everybody was like, oh, what is this? Like, this is new. This is completely new. And so I was just reminded of that a little bit because that's what we're getting with this film. We're getting a revenge flick with a totally new twist on it. And because it's not an English speaking film, I think it won't, storm the world like Lock, Stock did, but it'll get some attention. Definitely. Yeah. And there'll probably be a horrible American remake of it.
This is what craps me in a way. Like the fact that you watch this and it's got all the elements of any good, I don't want to say art house, but I mean just independent film. And It's just well done because, when you get someone with a bit of creativity and artistry, generally they'll take a different route with stuff. And it's just that this one's so beautifully and successfully done, and the fact that it hooks you in with the fact that you think it's a Liam Neeson thriller, it's going to catch everyone's attention. And I'm just worried that then you get everyone else trying to mimic, this sort of stuff and sort of tone down the novelty of it in a way.
Yes. Well, I can say, so there was one other thing that I was reminded of quite strongly was we've talked a lot about Korean cinema and, Danish cinema, I'm discovering, has a similar sort of sense of the unexpected and quirkiness that comes through with these characters. And no one yet, I don't think, has even attempted to really sort of crack into that magic of Korean cinema. Maybe Danish cinema will just be the same. It'll just be that thing that it's got its own little magic that comes from that part of the world that will remain its own thing. And I really hope so because it's wonderful.
Yeah. The interesting thing, of course, and this is how influence works, is I listened to an interview with the director, Anders Thomas Jensen, and his influences were all American cinema. So he grew up on Star Wars and all this sort of stuff. So isn't that weird that, that's, if you trace it back, the real inspiration comes from America.
Yeah.
And then it gets, imported to other places, and then they do their own
It
things
gets filtered through their own culture, which is great.
Yeah, and then potentially comes back. And maybe that's where, the force majeure remakes. Maybe they're doing. Maybe it's a maybe it's a social good that.
I think it's a social good. Absolutely. Like, I think if you can take an American sort of thing, like a revenge flick, and then put it, like, sort of completely twist it up and mangle it and make it beautiful again, like revenge flicks probably were when they first happened, and push it back out into the world, that's just a wonderful service to be giving to the planet.
Yeah. I got one more.
Awesome.
And we've mentioned force majeure, and we've mentioned the director Ruben Östlund, and I'm sure I've given this as a reference before, but it's just one of my favorite films, and it's called Involuntary by Ruben Östlund, and it's a movie where there's several stories where really full-on things happen to the characters, and the thing I love about it is that then no one knows how to react to those things. So it's it's just throwing crazy stuff out there, and both as the characters in the film and you as an audience have to really struggle with what am I meant to feel or think? Is this a major thing that's happened, or is it just some inconsequential thing? And I thought that really came through with this one in moments like Mads throws Otto out of the car, and basically leaves him for dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the characters meant to be thinking there? And what are we as an audience meant to be thinking? We like Mads, and now he's just potentially killed his mate.
And he doesn't stop and go back like you're expecting he's going to. He just keeps driving.
He just keeps driving. But that happens in life where, if just occasionally you're confronted with these sort of full-on things. It might be someone on a train that, gets out a knife and wants to attack someone. I don't know. We've all had minor versions of this where life has just become like more unusual for a moment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you have to think, what's the appropriate reaction to this? And that came in really clearly in what's it called? Riders of Justice.
What is this film again? Yeah.
But in Involuntary by Ruben Östlund, it was almost the main theme of the film, just several little vignettes where you just can't work out how to, what the reaction should be.
That's like an Östlund special, isn't it? Inexplicable human behavior, just things that we do randomly when we don't know how to react, or we just react in completely the wrong way, and it's great.
He's a great director, and even Force Majeure is a bit of a reference in a way. Yeah, because you've got this momentous event that happens, and then all in feature length you see people trying to come to terms with it, and this is the same momentous event, and then just the aftermath of that.
Great point. Yeah, completely. Well, I think we have hashed this one out. We've probably jumped around from the beginning to the end, to the middle, to theme, to whatever character, all over the place. But we got through it. And I think it's clear that we both love the hell out of this film. And this is one of those ones that I would just tell anybody, and most of them wouldn't listen because it's a Danish film. But I would say, you have to see this film. Go see it. I know it's Danish. You're going to have to read subtitles, but do yourselves a favor. Go and see this film. It's just great. It's one of those standouts.
Yeah, something in it for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, Doc, hey, it's been a bit of a gap, but we're going to try and make our episodes a little more frequently again, and hopefully we'll be able to do them in person again one day.
Well, look, can we just spend 45 seconds on, on what the future holds, but also what we've done in the past, maybe not released, because like a few weeks ago we actually watched Black Widow with Scarlett Johansson, and we did a whole recording of it in your studio where you are now,
here with the foam in the background and the lights and the microphones and everything,
and it was
looking so great. And then I realized that I hadn't set the microphone up properly, and what we were recording was the sound off of the laptop in the corner of the room. It was unusable, and it was so disappointing because it was a pretty good conversation, I thought.
Well, it was a good conversation. It was a pretty good film. Yeah. Honestly, Black Widow, it was great. So we went to the cinema together. We had a few drinks. We went back to the studio, half cut, and then we recorded in our new environment, which is where Baron is now. And we did this great episode, and then we stuffed up the audio.
I stuffed up the audio, and honestly, this is not the first time that we or I have stuffed up audio. Like it's a bit of a recurring theme. So
it is.
We definitely need like a technician of some sort, someone who gets this stuff a bit more than we do, just around, to make sure it happens. But anyway, down the track.
I think we're on the case with that too. But I think the thing to look forward to is that as soon as our lockdown ends, Baron and myself will be in the studio in a really cool little new environment, and we'll reboot the podcast then in a way. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun. That'll be fun. Okay, Doc, another episode down. So good to talk to you. And hey, we'll be back on here again soon.
See you soon, Baron.
All right. Catch ya.